Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License Flight number 51 with service to Laguna Beach. We ask that you please fasten your headphones at this time, secure your podcasting device, and remember, today's flight is a black and white party, and if you wear white, you're dead to us and must give up your seat on the plane.
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Geoff Kerbis, joined by my co-pilots, Rich Inman and Max Singer. How you boys doing today?
Let the rain fall down and wake my dreams. Let it wash away.
Wait, Max, you have to stop there. You have to stop there, otherwise we're going to be in the red for this entire podcast. You almost put us at a deficit for 50 episodes.
Hillary Duff has lawyers and she's not afraid to use them.
Oh my god. Rich, how are you doing today?
Oh god. I am conflicted, super conflicted about the show, and I'm so excited to hear why Max, of all people, decided to convince us to do Laguna Hills. And
Can't even get the show name right.
Wait, oh my god, Laguna Beach, god damn it. I don't know, man. This is like I everything I know about Orange County when I visit, I want to learn more about it. Everything about Orange County I see on TV makes me want to forget everything and just forget it exists.
So, Max, before we interrogate you, do you mind telling folks what this podcast is all about?
So here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows.
Can't
we
imagine
learn
what
about
you're
how
talking
they
about.
came to be and were originally made, if they're effective pilot episodes and make us want to watch more, and if they could be made today. Go back and stream our old episodes wherever you get your podcasts from. Check us out on YouTube to view our smiling faces. And if it is your first time flying with us, then welcome aboard.
And Max, I'm just gonna start. Max, you brought Laguna Beach to Rich and I, or as Rich likes to call it, Laguna Hills.
Whatever, man.
And I genuinely have to ask because this is something else, man. This is something entirely different.
This is fair, yeah.
And why? Just why? Why?
Why did I bring Laguna Beach, the real Orange County, to you guys for this week's episode?
Yeah, sure. You can start there.
Yeah. So there's two reasons that I wanted to do this show today. The first one is in the early stages of the pandemic in 2020, we were all stuck in our homes. I binged all of this show's spinoff, The Hills, in those early days where time seemed infinite and my brain was kind of on the fritz. And what I loved about The Hills was seeing like young people in their first jobs, just like trying to make it in LA. I also loved seeing all of the LA landmarks and hotspots in the years before I moved to that city. And so I thought it'd be fun to push even further back and do this show that was a cultural landmark of when we were all in high school and see like how we got from Laguna Beach to the Hills. The second reason is we're going to put on our cultural anthropology hats with our little flashlights on the front of them for a minute. And we're going to talk about what like the early aughts were in pop culture and how it crossed over into fashion and lifestyle and like what was hip. And like Orange County was kind of the center of the pop culture universe for a few years there. We're going to name some projects here that are not promotions of the shows. They are simply reference points and facts for our cultural anthropology study. But like the OC was like the hottest thing on TV. And, you know, Misha Barton became like a it girl and fashion icon, but so was like her character. They were kind of one and the same. You have a surprise hit comedy in Orange County that made more than double its budget, you know, that same time. And you look at like mall fashion and what like every single person was wearing. It was Hollister, Abercrombie and Fitch, PacSun, the ubiquitous Abercrombie and Fitch polo shirt that every single girl owned at this time makes a cameo appearance in this pilot episode.
Two of them. One collar up, one collar down.
Yeah, one for business, one for fashion. I don't know, man, but it's like it's a phenomenon that I don't know if it exists anymore. And I'm curious, like, do you guys think that is still a thing in pop culture where a show like dictates fashion and culture and like teen culture in that way, or is that something that's kind of lost in 2006?
Oh, that's such a good question because, like, I don't think it was lost in 2006 exactly. Um, I think it was lost a little bit later because there's a show I can point to in the Jersey Shore that I feel like slammed us all in the face. Like, there were parties that I went to our freshman year in school that were Jersey Shore themed, and people were unironically fist pumping in the air and like their life depended on it, right? I think though now with things like TikTok and whatever we want to call the thing that used to have a blue icon but now has a really weird X, and I get confused every time I see it on my phone. The way that culture travels is a lot quicker. It doesn't rely on television as much anymore. It relies on influencers or moment in time where we're given an ad by a company that's really good at targeting us. And we don't really like. The other day I realized I don't watch as much live TV anymore, so I saw an ad on TV and I sent it to you two gentlemen that shares our theme song. Right, and they were trying to push a mattress. It's stuff like that I sort of realized, like, advertising has sort of lost a step from a TV perspective, and how we learn what we want to get comes from a much different medium than it once did.
Yeah, there's not that mass thing of like every single person wants the Rachel haircut, or every single person wants to dress like Laguna Beach and consequently the OC. There's maybe like micro ones that happen. Like I think this past year, a lot of people talk about like Quiet Luxury and Secession and things like that, but that's like such a smaller scale.
I do want to argue with you. I still want spinning rims from Pimp My Ride. I have yet to get those, and I really want them on my
Jeff,
car.
all I'm gathering is that you're influenced by MTV.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, Exhibit A.
Oh my God.
Next.
Damn it. I agree with that sentiment a bit, in the sense that, like, yeah, we don't have the cultural moments that are like, it's not like a monoculture situation anymore. Everything is more island, more separated. It's a lot quicker. The trends come and go. I think, Jeff, that's 100% right, because of like influencers and the effect of social media and everything. I think because we are getting our media from so many different places now, people will still find a way to do it. I mean, don't get me wrong, like every like 17-year-old boy right now has the exact same haircut from like those kids on TikTok. All of them have the same haircut. I know you guys can picture what I'm talking about, but like every single one has that same haircut. And I know that's not, it is like the trends just spread very rapidly on social media. And while it's like they're creating a new Laguna Beach like every week, basically on TikTok and the Instagram algorithm and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it also extends to every age group. I mean, someone an influencer that I work with is very popular in the scene of Instagram moms who love home goods, and she basically has the power to like make an item sell out at Home Goods just from like her promoting it. And it is really, that's wild. That's a crazy amount of like I don't want to say power, but it's a crazy amount of influence for something that's not on TV and not like a household name. Like, we'll get into this with the actual show, but I don't see star power in any of these people based on like what they are and what the show is supposed to be. It's almost supposed to be like,
well, that's because you didn't watch it spin off the hills like I did.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I combined it for Laguna Hills and I watch it at 2x speed. I think, I mean, we're gonna get into this a lot, but this is definitely a moment in time where we are casting aside a lot of scripted TV shows for reality supremacy for especially our age group. We're only like a couple years younger than this cast. And can you call them a cast? I mean, this is like basically like a documentary series, right? I don't even know. I want to call it a documentary series because so little happens the entire time. And
Rich,
like,
if it makes you feel better, you could call it a documentary series.
Great. We'll get into this with the creation of the show too. But is this scripted? I truly cannot tell.
So what I'm gathering from all this is I picked a great show this week, and you're all very proud of me. Thank you so much, everyone.
You know what, Max? I will say this, and it's something you've told me once before too. Great media, great art makes you question yourself. And this definitely made me question a lot of things and life choices that I have made. Talking about questions, let's go to Rich. And Rich, what is your question of the week?
My question of the week is, aside from why, it would be if this was a show that was taking place centered around you and your high school friends, what would this version of Laguna Beach capture? And is there any drama even worth trying to scrape in there with editing, like from your own high school experience?
Oh, God. I'll go first. In the idea that, like, if it was just to center around me, sure, we would be doing, there'd be a lot of rowing boats. There'd be a lot of rowing boats and going to different crew races and people, the drama of that. But like, there was real drama for my crew team. There was, like Mean Girls, there was a burn book that came to light. I had to have a meeting with my vice principal because of something that was said in that burn book that was not true. That was a terrifying meeting. But like then in my high school, there was a sex tape. There was 2 people who committed a felony by stealing the life jackets off of a airplane on a class trip. There was
that's barely a felony.
There was a laptop stealing ring where students were stealing other students' laptops and then selling them for drug money. Right, like lots of wild. So like there was a lot of wild shit that happened. I don't know if I'd ever want to see a documentary like that because it would just make me sad. But yeah, like there's definitely enough stuff to go around that I see at least 3 seasons of TV.
Have I ever told you guys that MTV kicked the tires on a show at my high school?
No.
Oh, okay. So we're going to get into that then. So my high school was approached by MTV, and it didn't come to fruition, but they wanted to do the real High School Musical at my school. We had a theater program where we consistently at this time would clean up shop at Connecticut High School Musical Theater Awards. We had multiple Jimmy Award nominees and Jimmy winners. That's basically like high school Tony equivalent, essentially. And they did their research and they had people scouting. And for what would have been my senior year, they were really looking into this. And it ended up not happening. I think we'll get into some of this too with like some of the pushback that people had against Laguna Beach. But for whatever reason, it didn't end up coming to fruition. But yeah, there was a period of time where MTV wanted to capitalize on High School Musical using my high school and the people I knew and performed with as its cast.
That's wild. Rich, what about you?
So obviously there is a section of MTV or VH1 that like the corporate umbrella where they just sent people to high schools to talk about like reality shows for a good string of time. Because we had, was it MTV or VH1 that did Made?
MTV.
Yeah. We also had MTV people at my high school, and I'm just remembering this now. This is like I remember there was one kid who was like potentially going to be on it because he wanted to try stand-up comedy or something like that, and I can't remember who it was at this point, but also extremely close to that happening at my own high school. But for me, if it's about my own life, it's just like a bunch of my friends who dress poorly, talk like swore too much, and then spoke in Family Guy quotes. Like this would be like a really horrible. It'd be a really, really terrible show. Like I'm glad that Geoff had so much drama happen, but not me. And Max, some literal drama.
Well, Rich, thank you for your question of the week. Before we talk a little bit more about Laguna Beach, a quick word from our sponsors. Hey passengers, this is Captain Geoff. When I'm not watching TV shows or terrible TV pilots, you'll find me on Spotify listening to new and exciting artists. One album that I've been recently streaming is this week's sponsor, James Keith Norman and Beck Norman's album, Us Upon Sleep. If you are looking for something calm and relaxing that is great for meditation or even a walk, I would highly recommend it. So after the episode, make sure to search Us Upon Sleep on Spotify or any of your favorite streaming services. Now, back to the episode. Welcome back. Let's dive in to Laguna Beach, and we'll start off with a synopsis. Lauren Conrad takes on teenage life with a twist in the real Orange County, where the lifestyle is as dramatic as it is glamorous. Cool, sure, why not? Max, how did this get made?
So today we are talking about Laguna Beach, the real Orange County's pilot episode titled A Black and White Affair, which originally aired on MTV September 28th, 2004. And we're going to be talking about the show's creator, Liz Gately, today. So at this time, early aughts, MTV's really beginning to tap into the new reality world, going beyond shows like The Real World and into new horizons with shows like The Osbournes, Newlyweds, and Road Rules. But these shows all often focused on one of two things. Either celebrities with cameras in their houses and seeing what they get up to, or taking the MTV pseudo-celebrities in that kind of like microcosm and putting them into challenges and tasks and created scenarios. Liz Gately comes over to MTV from working in development at Lifetime, and this is actually her first pitch to the network, a show inspired by her own childhood in Palos Verdes, California, and conceived as a reality version of Beverly Hills 90210. It's going to focus on attempts to get into the alpha cliques, teen drama, romance, and so forth. When things don't work out in Beverly Hills, Gately looks south for a new location, her second choice, Laguna Beach. MTV sets up shop at Laguna Beach High School and has a table on campus to attract prospective cast members to apply and fill out a questionnaire. Questions include things like, who do you have a crush on? Who are you in a relationship with? And who's the funniest person at your school? Try to just mix and match and find out who the authentic people they could actually focus this show on might be. Keep in mind, this is a very small town. Cast member Talon Telerio says his graduating class is only about 180 kids. So this is a real small pocket they're choosing from here, which makes it all that more impressive.
Wow.
The show is pitched to hopefuls and their parents as a documentary-style show focused on getting into college, working, family life, and activities like surfing. Think along the lines of Made and True Life.
Mm-hmm.
They filmed out 8 months of content all on the weekends and condensed it for season 1, but it almost never made it to air at all. MTV comes under extreme fire for the infamous wardrobe malfunction incident at that year's Super Bowl in February. Mm-hmm. The school board would no longer allow anything on campus to be used and pulled out of their involvement amidst parent protests. Laguna Beach locals would even go so far as to walk into frame attempting to block shots from MTV's cameras when they saw them.
Wow.
So despite every attempt to derail, the show does make it to air that September with its ensemble in place. And I know Geoff loves when we know who all of our characters are up top. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a breakdown here before we dive in.
Holy shit, was this great.
We've got Lauren, a.k.a. Elsie, our lead and narrator. Lo, Lauren's best friend. Christina, the preacher's daughter. Morgan, a virgin. Trey, the serious one with the best party house in Laguna. Made my favorite description of someone. Talon, a junior who has hooked up with most of the girls in school twice. Kristin, the hot bad girl and enemy of Lauren. And Steven, the dreamboat center of our love triangle. From the success of the show, Liz Gately becomes an executive at MTV, helping to expand the network's scripted and unscripted slate for the rest of the 2000s before becoming the head of programming at Lifetime, where she came over from. And one of the other big producers of the show, Adam DeVello, helps develop the successful 2006 spinoff The Hills, with Gately serving as its EP. DeVello then takes the reality reins and is currently the mastermind behind the Selling Sunset franchise and all of its spinoffs.
So, okay, wait. The guy
Well-
who was in charge of development, his last name was His was almost development.
Yeah, this is kind of like in colonial times where your last name was just your job that you did.
Oh my god. Well, Max, thank you for that background. Let's talk about Laguna Beach, and we do start with the greatest exposition narration from Lauren Conrad we have ever seen on this podcast. But this is one of those things where I was thinking about this show and I was like, you know what? Too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. Too much narration up at the top and exposition at the top might, sour me from getting to learn about these characters. But then I realize at that same time, these teenagers that we are watching frolic around this town, that is their personalities are one sentence personalities that can be summarized in a 1 minute exposition narration.
Yeah, you're 17. It's not that deep.
I want to make a point really quick that that is, this is totally biting off of the intro for the Wild Thornberries in the sense that you have a ton of exposition in every single episode with the intro, and the Wild Thornberries walk so Laguna Beach could run. I'm just going to say that right now.
So from this exposition,
That's the
and
reaction
you're probably going to be.
Sigh.
Yeah, this is. I am just. I am. So, in this show, nothing happens, and that is me being so kind.
Are you kidding me, Geoff? The firch line of the exposition is this is where it all happened.
The only thing that happens in this show is that we are planning. Lauren Conrad, or Elsie, I'll decide later what I'm going to stick with, decides that it all started at the black and white party. That's where, and we even gets brought up and sort of served to us on a platter that the main conflict, the two people who are going to be at odds with each other this entire time, are Elsie and Kristin Cavallari. Or Kristin, as she is called, Kristin Cavallari. If you are in the know or keep up with celebrities, that name might sound familiar. We'll talk about it in a little bit. But they are arguing, or they have a disagreement of, they both like this shithead named Steven. And
yeah, he's a real doof.
And they're talking about going 17. to the...
He's 17. Can we set the
No,
expectations
he is. We're going to treat this... We are treating this like a pilot, and I'm going to say it. If Steven is a character, Steven sucks. Let's talk about the concept of this black and white party, right? These teenagers are going to be grabbing a hotel suite for them and their closest 30 friends to have a theme, dress up in just black or just white. And the way they talk about this is so interesting because there was a definitely on the list and forgot maybe on the list concept. The thing that struck me though about the beginning of this was just how much money MTV obviously put into this show. Especially after us just watching Real Housewives and them using a potato to film that entire series. This is amazingly high production.
The production value is night and day compared to a lot of other reality TV. It looks gorgeous. It looks sharp. The transitions are nice. And I think we also just need to this sounds so weird talking about a show about high schoolers, but this is groundbreaking reality TV. The narration concepts and the fact that we're making celebrity out of just filming real people's lives, whether it's scripted or unscripted. This is uncharted territory, and it's so ubiquitous with what reality TV is now. But imagine being a kid in 2004 and you start hearing voiceover that would blow your mind. You hadn't seen that before.
Yeah, so that was one of the reasons I was wondering if this was scripted. And because they are setting up these shots with good lighting, with exceptional cameras, with good angles, with angles that are like very in your face. And for a, like if you take a class on like documentary filmmaking or something like that, the core thesis of a documentary is trying to be as little involved with your subjects as possible. And it seemed very in your face and very like, I don't know, just like it was shot like a scripted TV show or movie. And that's what gave me pause like immediately. And I know I'm not watching this with the lens of like being a 17-year-old and trying to watch like other high schoolers in California or something like that. But it seems very anti-documentary in its feel, as opposed to like, yeah, as opposed to like Real Housewives, who are just trying to scrape it by in almost the same time frame. I think it was like, Housewives actually came after.
Yeah,
right?
2 years after.
Housewives came slightly after. So I do want to ask you guys, when you're hearing about these teenagers plan this party, let's play with the idea that we are watching a pilot, that this is how we are getting introduced to our main cast of characters. What are your initial thoughts? Is this inspiring to you? Do you want to see what happens with this party where there's definitely alcohol, but, MTV had to cut all of that out for the sake of this was a bunch of teenagers?
As a man in his 30s, no, but like if I were in high school, I would have eaten up every single word of this. And I think that's just it. And I do think, to Rich's point too, it's like, yeah, there's definitely a degree of scriptedness. I think everyone in this cast at some point has said like we weren't told what to say, but like they definitely kind of push us into things, or they made us like record a phone call to tie some things together for continuity purposes.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm just gonna throw those out there. I did see that MTV paid the bill for locations. So things like them paying a $700 bill for a suite at a beachside hotel, that's not these kids pulling together money. That's MTV, but it looks a lot better to like get into the world and the perception of these kids if they're throwing these lavish events.
Yeah, that makes
now, I did want to ask
so much
too,
sense,
because a nature of this, a pretty strong nature of this, like the reason you would buy into this show in general as a viewer is that they are actually a friend group. Now, it really does not actually feel like these people were friends before this show started. Did you see anything in your research that said like, because it seemed very disjointed. It did not seem like they were actually like same friend group or even really close.
From what I could tell, it's about half and half. Again, it's like they all obviously know each other. This is a town of 25,000 people at this point, at a graduated class of under 200. There's some juniors in here too. It's like a circle of like 400 or so. So I think everyone knows each other, but they've all also said like these weren't necessarily all my best friends. They were all people who were associated and had enough connection and relation that they worked together and screen tested well, and MTV could build a narrative off of this. But like they were cast, at the end of the day, these kids were all cast. They all were matched up by producers who said that these are the archetypes, even though they're all very similar, and these are the stories and personalities who we can make a show out of.
So I meant to ask this up at the top, Max, while you were walking through these character archetypes that we were talking about. But Rich and Max, what would your one sentence description be that if Lauren Conrad was to talk about you at the top of Laguna Beach based off of your high school experience? And we spoke about this a little bit earlier, but I'm genuinely curious. Max, I feel like you've had the most time to think about this since you've actually watched this show prior.
I think about it every day of my life. I think it would just be like, oh, that's Max. He's funny and sweet.
Rich, what about you?
There's Rich. He's just learning how to take showers regularly, and that's pretty cool, I think.
There's Geoff.
Jeff.
He's pretty weird. We don't know why we keep him around. That's it. That is the... So while we have
a lot
this
of confident high schoolers in this group.
Yeah, what a great... We would definitely be cast by MTV 100%.
While we're on this topic, though, there are two side characters who we meet fairly early on in this who have like the housewives like friend designation, who aren't part of the main cast, who get the best chirons to describe them. We get a guy named Polster, which I think that's short for upholstery. His chiron is just, his description is he's a party enthusiast. God damn it. Polster, quote, party enthusiast. And then there's a guy named Dieter who's described as just Steven's wingman. Polster being party enthusiast is the best description we will get in this entire episode.
So we learn about this party. Like, while the party is the title of this episode, right? While the party is sort of this main thing that we're leading up to, I would say that if we're going to treat this like a pilot, our B plot is the amount of tension between this quote unquote not love triangle that is happening among Steven, Elsie, and Kristin. And we learn a little bit more about the background of this as we go to Steven's job, which really threw me back into high school. The idea of someone who, had that summer job or that weekend job that they really didn't want to be at, but you visited them and distracted them from doing
I don't
their work.
think Stephen Coletti knows how to work that phone when it rings.
The most unenthusiastic. What was the name of the surf shop? We're just gonna
Surf and Sport, I think.
It's just called Surf Shop.
Yeah, literally picks up the phone. Surf and Sport. Yes, we have surfing lessons. $80 per hour.
And he's like making eyes at Kristin Cavallari, like, yeah, you like this phone etiquette, baby.
Yeah. But we
also,
get
the real muted excitement of him closing a sale over the phone was pretty sweet.
Yeah, like
I think he hangs up and says, "All right, surf lesson."
So we learn a little bit more about like the relationship that Steven had. Like, Kristin and Steven, according to the story that MTV is trying to tell us, are a thing. They are a item. But the thing that I found so interesting watching this is, if we're treating it like a show or we're treating it like a documentary, whatever you want to treat it at, we're going to our next scene. Trey, one of these characters, the person whose house is the best place to host parties.
Yeah, he's got the best party house in Laguna.
Best party house in Laguna is holding a barbecue, and we start to see the chemistry, the relationship between Steven and Elsie, and it's so much more believable that these two are friends, or these two actually
comically funny number of cuts back and forth between Steven and Elsie, and they're not even looking at each other. I don't think they're even in the same part of the barbecue. But they just keep doing these quick cuts to try and establish romantic tension. There's also a guy with a labelless beer and a Cat in the Hat at this party who's just the most 2004 high schooler imaginable.
Oh, I miss when my party identity could just be fun hat.
Like, there was at one point cotton candy in that hat that he bought at an Anaheim Ducks game.
That's the most OC thing there is.
God. The thing that I love about this, though, about the editing, the cuts that you're talking about, Max, is like 17-year-old me would have ate this shit up and been like, oh, they're so into each other.
They're meant to be together.
Yeah, they have. Why? How can they not be together? Like, fuck off, Kristin. Like, it's all about Elsie and Steven as a whole. And we sort of get this little extra drama that Steven's going over to Lauren's house after the barbecue. To which, like, even in high school, I would have been like, oh, that's a little gross. Like, why don't you can not do that as well, or like try to figure out something else to do other than just being alone, because you seem like a dirtbag.
I assume at some point they all become more comfortable with being on camera because they look visibly uncomfortable.
Oh, God, I sure hope so. I mean, they certainly do by the time they move to Los Angeles, but I really hope they figure it out in this one.
So one of the scenes that I just have marked as ew, gross, ew, gross, ew, gross is we go to Kristin Cavallari's house, and she proceeds to talk about having babies with Steven, even though I assume both of these people are only 17 years old.
With the entire notion just being, he's tan, our babies will be cute.
which is wild.
Oh my god, that is some severe galaxy brain. Why doesn't The Rock have a tattooed baby? Thinking.
Does she know that a tan is temporary and it fades?
The next scene we get is the only semblance of seeing adults in this entire show, other than the hotel manager. When we see a palm tree floating in the air via crane, and Lauren's dad just pointing and saying, "Over there." And then we get to see the most beautiful home that is being built and learn that Lauren's dad is potentially an architect or something like that. That's where all this money comes from. And we see her and Steven walking around an empty home, and there's dramatic music. Let's talk about the music for a second before we talk about this.
Oh man, grocery store core. I love it.
So this music is...
I'm looking at so many different varieties of Campbell's Chunky right now.
I will honestly say the music that they used in this show reminded me that, like, back in 2004, MTV still prided itself in being somewhat about music as a show, right, or as a network, right? Like, there was the idea of seeing music videos early in the morning before you went to school. There was the idea of, like, countdowns of the top music videos, or like trying to call in to Times Square to talk to Carson Daly
TRL.
and like all of that stuff. And they definitely prided themselves on putting some songs, like, yeah, some of it is grocery store music, but some of it at the time was like music that you wanted to hear or that you sought out hearing. So like, my guess is ending up on this show, like, yeah, Hillary Duff kicked us off. Awesome. Love that for Hillary. But on the other side of that, it was probably a pretty big deal to have your song on this show as a whole.
Yeah, the needle drop of 100 Years by Five for Fighting during the scene is a really powerful moment. I just looked it up. So that song was released as a single in November of 2003. It hit its peak on the Billboard chart late May of 2004, the same time the album came out. So this is like a current song, and this is something that would be like in the pop culture sphere on year-end lists and things when this show drops. So yeah, if you are an A&R person trying to get your artist a boost, you're absolutely fighting to get them as a needle drop in Laguna Beach. Absolutely.
And any thoughts about seeing two teenagers walk through an empty house and the wonderful editing to try to build tension of like, oh yeah, they're going to do it on the floor of this empty room?
I love the point at the screen when they say it reminds them of the houses on the OC. That's the real like Leo DiCaprio pointing at the TV meme.
The real OC. Oh my god. We go to, from this scene of seeing Steven and Elsie together, we get our first like Dieter actually talking, and this kid might be the grossest of all of the people on the show. I know this is a real life human being. I don't give a shit. Like, he's basically talking about like he hooks up with whoever isn't hooking up with Steven, and like that's how he survives. He is the fish that is on the underbelly of the shark getting the scraps, and he talks to those people directly in their face, and they are honest about the relationship and what he serves in this process.
No, dude, it's that's trickle down economics.
Max, what about you? What are your thoughts on this Dieter Kristin situation?
Well, is that, I'm trying to remember, is that Dieter or Talon in that scene?
It's someone.
It's either Dieter or Talon. I don't care enough, but there's a line. I know the conversation you're talking about, and he says to her face, whichever guy this is, they're all interchangeable. Our town is so small, we, quote, need a new girl. I'm sick of hooking up with the same girl. To the face of the girl he's hooking up with. That is the sleaziest high school thing I've ever heard. Like, men are absolute
so
trash. It's such a sleazy line.
But like, not even... There's a really quick garbage scene where like they tour the hotel room with the manager who says like no loud music at the party. It's a $700 room that they're
it's gonna be
getting
a classy
for the night.
affair. Oh my god.
But then there is a scene in which they are in a furniture store, and Steven proceeds to talk about his relationship with Kristin and LC. And I just have here, Kristin is fun to hook up with, but LC would be a better girlfriend. My only takeaway from this scene is there were pillows on the couch that Steven was on that were shaped like olives. And I want one of those pillows. That's my only big takeaway and only thing of value.
We need the olive pillow to go into the kitchen with the Italian chef statue from Real Housewives.
Oh my god.
OC Chic never dies.
So then after this, like after we learn a little bit about this, there's this really awkward, like definitely set up by the producers date that Kristin and Steven go on, where like, first of all, Steven, you got to say hi to the parents if you're picking up a date from their home. Like that is saying hi from the outside of the door is not acceptable.
Yeah, just
by any means.
Well, also he calls them by their first name, which also is just like I don't know about that.
That's a big red flag. There might be that sort of relationship. You might be that close, but like there's got to be some form.
Kid behavior, though.
Oh, 100%. That's also big Jewish behavior. Being on a first name relationship with
I don't know.
parents.
I feel like I'd be more like cool guy, like, I'll have her back by 10, Mr. C.
Flipping a nickel.
So from this entire point, there's an argument. Sure, there's tension between Steven and Kristin. Who knows how big it is?
How dare they get into it in Pomodoro, the nicest Italian restaurant in all of Laguna Beach?
And then we have the build up to this party, right? They're in the hotel bathroom. Holy shit. I don't want to know how crowded it was in there, but also it just gave me flashbacks of getting ready for high school parties with friends as a whole. And
getting ready for parties, getting your mirror phones, your digital cameras. There is the greatest reality TV producer smash cut in this scene. Everyone who's ever worked on a reality show has watched this scene as their North Star for how to make an edit. And it is when, I believe it's Lauren's best friend, says, "I have not found a cute white dress ever. They all look trashy or tacky." And we hard cut to Kristin getting ready and wearing a white dress. That is Thelma Schumacher levels of editing brilliance right there.
Beautiful.
So there is one major conflict that does not involve Steven, LC, or Kristin, and that is the cologne debate, where we see a shoe that is just in the driveway that has been so zoomed in on by the cameraman just happens to have a bottle of cologne in it, and we see it get run over by a car so intentionally that it, you couldn't throw a bottle of cologne on the floor more intentionally than this person ran over it with their car. Who was in the wrong?
I do have a super quick note about this scene because I thought this was very important. Right around the time that this scene was happening, I saw a pretty cool bug outside, and I watched that for 5 minutes while this show played. So I missed the 5 minutes where this happened. I wrote that in all bold in my notes, and I just want you all to know that.
I think that we need to establish that there's only one possible cologne this could have been in 2004. It was obviously a bottle of Crush by Liz Claiborne. That's the only that's the only cologne it could have been.
Oh, that's wild. So do we want to talk about this black and white party at all, and just how awful of a party it looked like? It definitely they were flashing Evian water bottles everywhere that had to have been filled with some form of vodka in them.
The only thing I really want to talk about from this party is that it's so funny, like watching them dance to a song that is clearly not what we're hearing in the episode. Because again, we get like a 2004 MTV A&R approved needle drop here, and it's so clearly not the song that like people are getting up on the ottomans and dancing to. I don't know. This just kind of seems like every other high school party where it's like it kind of sucks. No one really wants to hang out with each other. Everyone's in their little groups in the corner and sitting on beds, and then all the mean people decide to leave and the party's over.
Yeah, as opposed to parties that we go to where everyone hangs out in the kitchen and you eventually play a board game. But this party does end in sort of unresolved conflict of Kristin leaves with Steven because she's not having a good time. They were only supposed to stay for 5 minutes. And then without explanation, Lauren Conrad is just out on the deck by herself, and we get credits.
You have to get the longing shot of your protagonist. I think also it's important to note that Black and White Affair does not just symbolize the black and white party, but also that, like, the affair, this conflict, it's not so black and white.
You know, we've had guests on the show who've actually done thesis about the episodes or the shows they've been on. This is where Max comes and says, I have done a thesis on MTV reality TV of the early 2000s. So that is the end of our pilot, wildly.
I think they just ran out of editing money.
We spent a lot more time than I thought we were going to talking about it. But I have to ask the question, and you can say no. You can say no. Any things that we loved about this pilot that we didn't talk about? Rich, I'm going to start with you. Any things that you loved about this pilot?
I just want to say the bug that I saw outside was pretty cool. It was green and it had a lot of white bumps. So that was pretty dope. Everything else, like the part where I was looking at the TV, was not so great. So,
Max, what about you?
We've kind of touched on this already, but I want to highlight with the music drops, like the pop culture importance of those. So Adam DeVello also is the mastermind behind the Selling Sunset franchise and its other properties like OC and Tampa, which are mocked ruthlessly for their just awful, awful music interludes of, like, I don't know, what if like AI tried to become a DJ? Like, the songs are so bad, they make no sense. I've never actually heard of any of these artists. I don't think they're real. And it's kind of like a signifier of like how we just don't need like MTV to be that cultural force anymore. So like it was kind of fun to see a show having that influence with like songs that would chart and become hits and having an importance to it, because like music just doesn't matter in reality shows anymore the way it did in the mid-aughts. And I don't know, bring that back. I want to see more new artists getting breaks from appearances on TV shows.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree with you. I think that there was something that was nostalgia driven on me watching this, right? Of music being an important part about like an MTV show. Like, where some of the programs that we mentioned, like Next and Made, like music was a big part of those shows.
And music still is important. I mean, Kate Bush soared back into the top of the charts with the song from the 80s with the running up that hill phenomenon. Right now, like every single person is obsessed with Strange Currencies by REM from their mid-90s album Monster because of another popular show that used it a lot as a theme this past summer. But like they're not new songs, they're not new artists. We're not breaking people the same way. It's like we use music for throwback nostalgia and then they become hits like years later versus like up and comers.
Yeah, and I would say that TikTok has more so replaced that now in our current climate of culture that we're in. Other thing that I loved about this pilot, there was a B-roll footage and there were dolphins in the background. Really enjoyed seeing some wildlife. Now, as far as wait a minute moments, Max, I'm going to ask you to yuck your own yum. What were some wait a minute moments that you saw in this pilot?
So while MTV has stated they never provided alcohol and they did their best to cut around it, it is really jarring just watching them film underage drinking. Like, look, we've all been to a high school party. It's part of life. It happens. And you can't show an accurate high school experience off campus if you don't show, like, if it's, you can't pretend it's not there. You can't just hide it. You could remove the labels to not get sued, but it is just weird watching them filming them with like a beer bottle or what's probably not water in that water bottle at Trey's backyard barbecue and at the hotel party. And I just kept thinking about that the entire time. I became very like concerned parent for a minute. I understand why people like went to the school board.
Rich, what about you?
I'm going to take that a little bit of a step further, Max, and that's a really terrific point. That is a weird thing to just show on TV. They shouldn't stop filming high schoolers in general. This is like a deeply weird premise, and I really do not enjoy the fact that they are all minors and agreeing to be on this TV show that is up for public consumption. I think it's extremely short-sighted of them. It's probably fucked with their realities as adults. But in general, I don't know what child labor laws that were enforced on set during this type of thing. Like you guys mentioned that it was filmed on weekends only. Have no idea if that's really the case. Like there are specific child labor laws put in place for child actors in general. And I don't know if that covers reality TV shows at all. But having a camera crew follow around a bunch of 17-year-olds or 16-year-olds is really fucked up.
Yeah, and I'll say
What about you, Geoff?
I don't like wastefulness, and a perfectly good bottle of cologne got destroyed because a producer really wanted to see that shot. But yeah, Rich, I think you have some good points. I think if I place myself back in 2004, this was just sort of MTV's bread and butter, and this was an evolution of what they were doing on some of the other TV shows. It was just a little bit of a longer form series rather than Made or Next or
Man, Rich, I was going to
Room
ask
Raiders.
if you wanted cheese on your burger at Trey's backyard barbecue, but now I'm not.
No, Trey's 36 now.
So we do have one more question. It is our in-flight question coming to us from one of our listeners. And you can submit those via Instagram. Find us at TV Pilots License everywhere on social media. But this week's in-flight question, infamously, it all began at the Black and White Party. What other themed party would you prefer for these teenagers to be doing to kick off Laguna Beach? I love this question because we were in a fraternity that held a lot of really fun themed parties. So I want us to put our brains together and hear what each of us would think would be the best theme for the folks from Laguna Beach to be doing in this hotel room. Max, I'm going to kick it off to you.
Oh, man. I think instead of like black and white, it should just be like a wetsuit party. Just everyone wear your best surfing wetsuits to the party. But you also have to have like the ankle strap on. It doesn't need to be attached to a surfboard because that's bulky and that takes up too much space. But yeah, you need to essentially just be walking around in wetsuits.
Rich, what about you?
Yeah. I like the theme of just damp to build on that. I like when things are like kind of gross, where everyone has that like the dirt coming off their shoes and a puddle on the floor, like a lot of our frat parties in the basement when people spill
This
on
is
the
tying
ground
back
and
to
no
the
one
bug
cleaned
that
it
you
up.
saw.
Yeah. I just like a nice swamp environment for it. I think that the bug could thrive there. I think
Is
the
that why
bug should
Shrek
have a
Rave is
bigger
taking off
place
around the
in.
country?
Yeah, that's a wet floor party if you've ever seen one.
Yeah, and
you gotta build your own swamp.
I will take from one of my favorite parties we hosted as a fraternity, which was cowboy boots and bathing suits, which we had folks who dressed like cowboys and folks who did not.
That was really the original Barbenheimer.
And what I'd love is if you have a party idea you think these teenagers should have done, put it in the comments below, or comment on this episode.
Choose your words carefully.
Yeah, please remember they're 17 and 18. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the legacy of this show. There were 3 seasons and 43 episodes. Interestingly enough, after the show went off the air, it actually got syndicated on a few other networks, specifically Fox and CW come to mind. There was a spinoff immediately after Laguna Beach, the real OC, the real Orange County went off the air, and that was called Newport Harbor, the real Orange County, which was canceled after 12 episodes. Max talked a little bit about The Hills, which features much of the original cast, really talking about life as a professional or trying to be a professional. You can actually find this on DVD. I don't know why you would go and look for that. But here's my favorite fun fact about this show. So in 2010, a study came out about the impact of Laguna Beach, the real Orange County, on Laguna Beach. And what they found is because of the show, crime in Laguna Beach actually rose at a gigantic amount. And that was because the filming caused so much chaos in the town that people would want to go and see MTV. There'd be car crashes. There would be stores that got broken into. There'd be trespassing. So this show's responsible for crime. And take that as you will. But that is the confusing legacy about this show. Before our flight comes to a land, Rich, I can't wait for it. What is your game of the week?
All right, I'm going to pivot entirely away from this show entirely. And I want you guys to have a couple trivia questions prepared about other people who became extremely famous before the age of 18. And I want to see if you guys can guess these. I'm going to split them up though. Geoff, this first one's for you. What ruler and total nepo baby had conquered a country by the age of 18? Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, Napoleon II.
Alexander the Great.
Alexander the Great is correct. Max, this teen idol already had several concertos to his name by the age of 10, changing the course of music forever. This one's open-ended.
I'm going to say that is one Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
That is correct. Geoff, catcher on the cover of Teen Vogue or delivering an address to the UN, what activist is the youngest winner of the Nobel Peace Prize at only 17 years old?
Oh, shit. I know exactly who it is. I do not know the name off the top of my head.
May I go for the steal?
You may go for the
Yes,
steal.
you can.
Would you be referring to one Malala?
There you go.
Yes, I would. All right, and Max, the last one's for you. What crucial invention was made when the inventor was only 15 years old? Was it A, the word processor, B, Braille, C, voice to text?
Man, I really thought you were going to say the popsicle. I'm going to say Braille.
That is correct. Braille was invented by a 15-year-old.
That's wild. Well, that makes me feel a lot
That's
better
awesome.
about society, Rich. Thank you so much for that
Yeah.
inspiring game of the week.
You're so welcome.
We end this podcast with two very simple questions. One, based off of the pilot, would you continue watching this 3-episode series? And two, if MTV decided to do a reboot, right, of this show, they just rebooted very recently The Hills. The Hills New Beginning came out a few years ago. Do you think that should be made? Do you think that belongs in this world right now? Rich, I'm going to start with you.
Number one, no. I think there should actually be some legal punishment for the people who brought this show to fruition in the first place. Anywho, if you waited a couple years, wait a couple years until they're in college. Then they have like more of a legal standing for this. But I also no, just the premise of the show, the fact that it goes nowhere. What is the point of this? I do not understand. Max is deeply in disagreement with me.
Max, what about you? I'm curious about you.
So I'm actually probably going to surprise you here based on how I've been presenting myself for the last hour. I'm going to say, based on the pilot alone, no, I would probably not continue to watch Laguna Beach. It is a very slow-moving series. I think that if you are a fan of reality TV and you want to see a piece of its history, this is out there now for you to consume it. Check it out. I think it's definitely worth like the trip down memory lane, but what I get out of The Hills and what made me want to keep binging it is that like young adult, like finding your place in the world, your first jobs, the trials and tribulations of that. There's a scene famously where Heidi Montag is a main character that is at her desk at like her first adult job, and she's making her like Outlook calendar, and just every single day all she's entering is the time she starts work and the time she ends work, and that's her entire calendar. And I don't get those moments from Laguna Beach because of the stakes, because of their age. As for could it be made today, I'm also going to say no, and I think we hit on this, and actually I think Rich hit on this exactly earlier, because you don't need to have an MTV show to be the teen that everyone wants to see, the person that you want to emulate now. We have these people who are using their TikTok platforms to become major influencers and it girls, and you can watch these little mini 90-second Laguna Beach episodes as they introduce you to their friends and their lives in college and so on and so forth. And now they're getting, their own TV shows with their families and a chance to spin off of that. I just don't think we need a Laguna Beach anymore to have that insight that we did in 2004.
And from myself, absolutely not, as far as continuing to watch this show, right? Like, there are things that came out from MTV in this time period that I genuinely can sit down and watch and enjoy. And maybe we'll talk about those sometime soon on this podcast. But as far as this show continuing or being rebooted, yeah, I think we all hit on it. There's other stuff, right? Like, I think when it comes to the concept of watching something about teens in high school, there's a lot more comfort about knowing something is scripted and has actors that are, 23 to 35 years old playing an 18-year-old than there is watching a 16 or 17-year-old on screen. The thing that I actually would say, if you want to watch something that's more of a time capsule of like life as a teenager, not with producers in your face, there's a lovely documentary that was made in 2008 called American Teen about teens in Warsaw, Indiana, that I absolutely adore. And I think does such a good job about talking about life as a teenager from a realistic perspective, not these forced situations, not this glamour version of this show. Instead, the true difficulties that a lot of teens face. And really, like, yeah, sure, we could say that MTV is in the wrong for a lot of stuff. But what I think they're more in the wrong for is showing unrealistic ideals to people who are in the time of their life when they need good influences and need to really grow their confidence as a whole. So, you know what? I hope that more of that sort of content gets made at the end of the day. And with that all being said, as we all are knows, in many senses of the word,
some more than others,
where can we find you two gentlemen? Max, where can we find you?
You can catch me being a podcast enthusiast and on all things social media at Maxwell Sig.
Rich, what about you?
You can catch me giving surf lessons for $80 an hour per person. All right, surf lessons. And also on Instagram at Damn That's Rich. And you can find Max and my sketch comedy at Dadwagon Comedy on TikTok.
And you can find me trying to find a white dress that doesn't look tacky. But if you're looking for me on social media, you can find me at Run Jeff Run. You can find the TV Pilots License on all social media, including YouTube, at TV Pilots License. If you have a question about the show or for our next episode, give us an email at tvpilotslicense@gmail.com or give us a call at 213-290-1713. Make sure to watch out for sneak previews of some of our upcoming episodes. There was a wonderful TikTok that Max just put out that I highly recommend about our latest episode. But with the plane landed and the seatbelt sign off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world with you again soon. And until then,